Tonight on TVS, Lloyd Grossman prowls around the homes of the famous.
On Coast to Coast tonight, 2 joyriding teenagers die as they drive a stolen car into trees outside Reading.
After being told buy a Hoover appliance and fly to Europe free, customers still wait for their tickets.
And the top 10 toys for Christmas. We find out what children will be unwrapping this time next week.
It's all in Coast to Coast. It's tonight at 6. Wasted lives. 2 teenagers die as a stolen car crashes.
The Dorset travel agent sucked into the Hoover free flights row.
Front page news, the Hampshire Chronicle moves into the 90s.
And discover the top 10 toys this Christmas.
Good evening. 2 teenagers are dead and a third is fighting for his life after crashing a stolen car in Reading. It was driven by a 15-year-old who had no licence and no insurance.
The teenagers crashed in a busy town centre street last night. Police say it was amazing no one else was killed or injured. Peter Henley reports.
There were 4 young lads in the stolen Volkswagen Passat when it crashed. None of them was wearing a seatbelt. The 2 who died were in the front, 16-year-old Jamal Khan and 15-year-old Shakal Latif. They were speeding down the Reading Road in Woodley when the car went out of control. A broken headlamp marks the spot where they left the road. The car slammed into an oak tree in a front garden and spanned 10 feet into the air before a second tree stopped it dead. Your officers speak to speeding motorists every day, to youngsters who've stolen cars for fun. What do you think they should learn from this?
Well, they put themselves at risk every time they go on the road, put themselves in this position. There is a potential there for these sort of horrific circumstances. And I would ask them to look at this damage and just imagine what would have happened to them if they were in this vehicle.
The young driver had not passed his test and was not insured. Like so many so-called joyriders, from the moment he got in the car with his friends, he was heading for disaster.
And when you arrive at the scene to see this, I ask you, where is the joy in joyriding?
The crumpled back seat shows how at least one of the rear seat passengers was thrown clear of the wreckage. One lad was 14, the other 15. He suffered severe injuries and is now fighting for his life in hospital. The car was stolen 2 days ago in Reading. All the 4 boys lived locally and attended nearby schools. Tonight, 4 families that were preparing for the holidays are in deep shock, coming to terms with the tragedy. Peter Henley, Coast to Coast, Reading.
We're joined now in Reading by our reporter Peter Henley. Peter, how much of a problem is car theft in the Thames Valley?
A tremendous problem, Fred. We're in the Oxford Road area of Reading, where even the police admit if you leave a car like this Ford overnight, the chances are if you come back to it in the morning, it'll be gone. This one has a standard alarm fitted to it so that it'll deter thieves. But if you don't have an alarm, you're likely to join the statistics. 365 cars stolen since November the 10th in the Reading area alone, and of those, 125 still outstanding.
Now, these were all young boys. I mean, the driver was only 15. Is there any evidence to suggest that, in fact, more and more youngsters are getting involved in car theft?
Yes, youngsters see the adverts for fast cars. They can't afford one, so they go out and take one. But the majority of car theft is by professionals, people who make a living out of stealing cars or their contents and selling it on.
It's commonly known as joyriding, but in fact that is a term the police do not like hearing used.
Well, they don't want it used, of course. Joyriding makes it sound like it's something easy, something safe. If these kids had been encouraged by the idea that joyriding was enjoyable, then those are 2 unnecessary deaths.
And not a lot of joy for the families of these boys this particular Christmas.
No, absolutely. 15 and 16-year-olds who usually would be given another chance. They make mistakes, they get older, they grow out of it. These 2 don't have another chance because they won't be here this Christmas.
Peter Henley, it's a sad story. Thank you nonetheless for joining us from Reading. Bye.
Other news now, and a small travel agent in Dorset is at the centre of a new row over the free flights promotion by Hoover. JSI Travel of Shaftesbury handled the company's first offer of free tickets to Europe. But so far, out of 40,000 applications, only 700 people have received tickets. Mark Bishop reports.
It's difficult to imagine that this tiny travel agency in Shaftesbury has been responsible for handling a nationwide promotion by the domestic appliance giant Hoover. For 2 months, JSI Travel Limited dealt with the first of Hoover's unique promotional offers. The multinational manufacturer came up with an almost too good to be true marketing idea to give anyone who bought an appliance costing £100 or more 2 free flight tickets. This offer was to a European destination only, a forerunner to the free flights to America scheme. Within days, JSI were being swamped with registration forms. Complaints soon followed from around 1,000 angry customers. They said they'd received a letter from JSI stating they had to resubmit their forms with 2 alternative departure dates for their flights, which must be 30 days apart.
We sent a letter to those clients that had only picked 1 date and asked them to return the voucher filled in with 3 dates. In that letter, we stated that the dates should be separated by 30 days. That was actually a mistake on our behalf.
The European offer closed on October the 31st. Hoover has now brought in outside help to process the tens of thousands of applications. Hoover has been accused by many customers of organising a promotion that makes it almost too difficult to take advantage of. This man, Mike Blackwood, a Southampton bus conductor, recently bought a Hoover dishwasher. He's believed to be one of 100,000 people who've taken part in the free flights to America scheme.
We give the free dates, they give us 3 dates if our 3 dates ain't suitable, and then there's no more obligation from Hoover.
I mean, do you think that's fair?
It isn't really, because the idea of selling the product was to give you 2 free flights, but then that's their way out of it. If we can, you know, in one respect, they can easily say the dates you give are no good and give us dates that are sort of like totally impossible.
The free flights to America offer closes at the end of this month. A spokesman for Hoover says there shouldn't be any reason why a flight date can't be agreed with the customer for the America or European offer. So far, around 700 people out of 40,000 have flown to a European destination and returned. The promotion has generated a phenomenal amount of interest from consumers. Although Hoover has put together a promotion in good faith, there's no doubt that anyone wanting to take part in the offer will have to be very flexible in arranging a departure date. Mark Bishop, Coast to Coast.
Scientists at Sussex University believe they've discovered a better way of testing the hearing of newborn babies. Trials are currently going on at the Royal Sussex County Hospital in Brighton. But it may all have to end as money for research is running out fast, as Natalie Gray now reports.
14-week-old Pierce Matthews from Seaford in Sussex is having his hearing tested. There is a history of deafness in the family, and his mother wants to know if Pierce has problems too. He's been given a brand new test developed by researchers at Sussex University, which gives doctors more detailed information than those currently in use. Newborn babies in intensive and special care units are 10 times more likely to have hearing problems than other youngsters. This test means doctors can properly assess their needs during the crucial first 6 months.
It gives me more information about a baby's hearing, and a baby is very difficult to tell what their hearing is like without these kinds of tests. And it gives me that extra picture of what their hearing is like across pitches, I hope. And that can help me in terms of their hearing aid fitting and so forth.
Dr. Anne Brown, who's leading the research team at Sussex University, explains how the screening works.
Well, we put the little probe in his ear, and then we stimulated his ear with sound at different pitches. In fact, we used 2 tones, and when we use 2 tones, the ear generates some distortion itself, which comes back out of the ear, and we measure that with the microphone. And if we've got distortion, we know that that ear is working reasonably well. These black dots here are the responses that the ear itself was generating, the distortion that the ear was generating. And you can see here, 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 and here, and here, it's well above the background noise, and that means the ear is generating a really good response, and we can be very happy about the way his ear is working.
So good news then about Pierce, but unhappily not for the researchers. They badly need £15,000 to continue their work, otherwise it will have to end. The Hearing Research Trust, who's trying to fund the project, says it's vital that their valuable work continues. Natalie Gray, Coast to Coast, Brighton.
The schools broke up today, and that means another worrying time for British Rail. Every holiday, dozens of children put themselves in danger by trespassing on the railways. Many are seriously hurt or even killed. In a new attempt to get their safety message across, British Rail has launched 2 hard-hitting videos. Keith Akehurst reports.
Every year, 200 people are killed on Britain's railways. Many of them are children. Many more are injured. It starts as a prank or maybe a shortcut to school. It ends in tragedy for the child, family and friends. Now British Rail is hitting children with powerful images to stop them being hit by trains.
One touch of live equals dead. This is what can happen.
2 videos are being used to drive the message home. They're being taken around schools to warn of the dangers.
Only fools break the rules. Remember the railway code.
One video is for primary school children, the other for secondary pupils. They're being presented by train drivers, some of them whose trains have run down and killed trespassers. But there are the unseen dangers of electrified rails as well.
The railway is a fun place to travel on, but it's no place to trespass on. Whether you're on the tracks, or whether you're near to the electrification, or whether you're climbing on carriages, you shouldn't do it. It's dangerous, and the most likely effect, frankly, is you'll get killed.
It's a powerful message, convincingly delivered. British Rail hopes it'll stop children using the nation's railway track as a playground. Keith Akehurst, Coast to Coast.
Now, a roundup of the rest of the day's news from your part of the TVS area.
Over. He'd been taking children to Portway Infant and Junior School. Several had to be treated for shock and minor cuts, although none was seriously injured. Mr. Steeden from Basingstoke was fined £75. An inquest into the death of a schoolboy who fell through the roof of a building has ruled that it was an accident rather than neglect. Keith Malone reports.
9-year-old Curtis Williams crashed 40 feet to the ground after going exploring on a derelict industrial site at Reading. The coroner was told that Curtis and some friends got in through a hole in the fence. Residents had long been complaining that the buildings were potentially lethal for children with a sense of adventure. But the inquest heard that police had put out warnings about the dangers of playing there. Curtis died after the roof he climbed onto gave way. A friend also fell, but wasn't fatally injured. Soon after his death, council workmen repaired the fence. Earlier this week, plans were submitted for the site to be redeveloped for housing association flats. Meanwhile, parents are working with Reading Council to raise money for an adventure playground to be built in the area. Keith Malone, Coast to Coast, Reading.
A 27-year-old Reading man pleaded not guilty to 2 charges of murder when he appeared before the town's Crown Court today. Martin Vaughan of Mount Pleasant in Reading is accused of murdering father of 3 Ricky Lucas of Bamborough Close in the town and Michael Watkins in August this year. They both died after being driven to a doctor's surgery suffering from stab wounds. Vaughan was remanded in custody until his trial next year. Lady Sarah Graham Moon, who hit the headlines when she cut the sleeves off her husband's Savile Row suits and left the contents of his cellar on neighbours' doorsteps, was today fined for speeding. Lady Graham Moon's acts of vengeance took place after her ex-husband went to live with his mistress. Today she was fined £60 by magistrates at Newbury. She had admitted to travelling at 47 miles an hour along Love Lane in Newbury, which has a 30 mile an hour speed limit. That's all from me. Now return to the Coast to Coast studio and Fred.
Well, now, there was a time when newspapers didn't have news on the front page. They were happy to fill it with adverts, just like this. Times change, of course, except at the Hampshire Chronicle. However, even the old Chronicle had to change sometime, and now its readers are eagerly awaiting front page news. Or are they? Malcolm Shaw reports.
In the circulation war, there are no prizes for subtlety. But beside the lurid tales on the tabloid covers, there's still a newspaper with a somewhat lower profile. In the back-to-front world of the Hampshire Chronicle, advertisements adorn the cover and news is tucked away inside.
In Victorian times, most newspapers did look like the Hampshire Chronicle, but while others went over to front-page splashes and banner headlines, the Chronicle stayed the same for 150 years.
Not anymore. The new year will see a new Hampshire Chronicle. Gone are the auction previews and livestock lists that have made the Chronicle so unique, knocked off the front page by the news.
Yeah, I think it's purely market pressures, business pressures. It's all very well being unique, but I think we owe it to our readers, we owe it to our advertisers in particular, to sell as many newspapers as we can. And we're pretty confident that having news on the front page will help us to do that.
Fiercely independent since 1772, it seems the Chronicle is finally to be dragged into the 20th century. But will the readers approve?
I really think this should stay. It's traditional.
Well, I think it's more attractive to go for a paper which has some news on the front. You know, if you just sort of see adverts, I think it's a bit off-putting, really.
Still buy it, because I'd buy it anyway. I don't know whether I'd be any more likely to or any less likely to, because I'd buy it anyway.
It's not just the Chronicle's front page that's set to change. Age-old methods like cutting and pasting will soon give way to computers. With a circulation of around 20,000, there's no longer room for sentimentality.
People walking past the newsstand don't know whether the Chronicle displayed is this week's, last week's, or the one before. They look the same every week. And although some people like that, I don't think it's the right way to sell a newspaper. It's a question now of the head ruling the heart. We've run it with the heart for long enough.
Do you think it'll make any difference to sales?
Well, it's one of those things I think you'd have to wait and see, but yeah, it's a possibility.
The first editions of the revamped Chronicle will roll off the presses in January. But just in case the pace of change might upset loyal readers after so long, there's a gentle warning to prepare them. Malcolm Shaw, Coast to Coast.
Well, that really is the end of an era. Now then, do you believe in Father Christmas? Of course you do. You've probably already sent off a letter to Lapland. I have. Fred has as well, haven't you?
I certainly have.
But what are the children asking for this year? And is the present they want the right thing to get?
In this week's Friday report by Sean Holden, we reveal the South's top 10 toys this Christmas.
We tell you why Thunderbirds are gone.
And we ask, is there still a place for traditional toys?
For some, Christmas is a religious time. For others, it's a wasting disease of the wallet. But more than anything, it's toy time with its own hit parade. Manufacturers battle each year to spark young imaginations and get into that Toy Town top 10. This year, in the #1 best-selling slot, WWF Wrestlers at £7.49. At number 2, Trolls, £3.79. In at 3 and still not showing her age, Barbie, £10.37. Number 4, the Sylvanian Family and their bus, £18.97. At 5, electronic learning aids, education for £49.87. At 6, one for dads, Lego kits, £12.97. Polly Pocket, tiny doll at number 7 for £4.29. At 8, the Boglins, £21.97. Terminator is back at number 9, £4.47. And at 10, another middle-aged dolly, Cindy, for £13.94. But nowhere in the chart do you see these. Not at 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. Thunderbirds are the biggest hit of all, but the makers have been caught by surprise and they can't supply enough. So sales aren't high enough to get in the chart. Even though, as soon as they hit the shelf, Thunderbirds are gone. In spite of parents' fears, or maybe because of them, it is the less costly toys which are dominating the charts. One of them told me so.
Oh, well, and not surprisingly, the cheaper toys like Boglins are selling the most.
But the real big interest is in the much more expensive toys. Oh, Mum, everyone's got one except me! The frightening cry in thousands of households from children desperate to become Street Fighter 2. The computer game systems, at around £150 each, are simply a must for many children this year. Street Fighter 2 from Nintendo and Sonic the Hedgehog from Sega are the top games, but hopeful interest in every kind of computer game is the dominant theme of Christmas this year.
Obviously, it's a big thing that the kids are into these days, so yeah, massive, massive interest.
One of the things that parents worry about is that you get one of these for your kids and they turn into zombies.
That's right, that is the danger, but I mean, often parents say that they're going to ration their kids, you know, after their homework, they will play with it and things like that. There is a danger of becoming a bit zombified, I guess, by playing these games, but it's what the kids want these days.
And that's the big fear with computer games, isn't it? That the family used to have a bright and bouncy 13-year-old who now seems to have become a withdrawn, obsessed member of the living dead. But isn't it just a fad like any other?
If a young person has, or a child has good relationships with their peers and with their family, then families don't have to be too worried about it. I mean, kids tend to go through phases, and they may get very obsessed. And there used to be things like stamp collecting and things like that. I don't know how much stamp collecting is done nowadays, but kids do go through phases, and they may just work through that, and then it's discarded. And sometimes getting too anxious about it can prove a focus of conflict.
Nevertheless, dancing in the minds of many mums and dads is the idea that toys used to be healthier, nicer. That once upon a time birds didn't thunder, and toys encouraged more use of the imagination. Ian McCartney is one of Santa's traditional helpers. In his garden shed in Southampton, he makes toys that look at home in a Christmas stocking. Ah, yes, that's it. That's a toy for dreamy Christmases, where overloaded stagecoaches glide through Victorian snow. Traditional toys. But with this much work, they're not all that cheap. This thoroughbred costs £500. Ian thinks it's a bargain.
If you bought a computer or a plastic Game Boy or whatever, it'll do your child. That's it. You buy one of these for a child, they will do his great-great-grandchildren.
What do they mean to you?
Oh, they're horses. Well, like I said, they're just something you make, and they're friends to you after a while.
Of course, some children need all the friends they can get at Christmas. Every year, the Reading-based radio station Radio 210 runs an appeal for presents for children who otherwise would have nothing except the same wishes as any other child.
We do come across families in this situation, and it is heartbreaking. You've got a youngster that's running around with peer pressure from others saying, you know, I want this, I want that, and they just can't afford to give it to them.
One Reading father who became unemployed in the summer is bitter about the pressure which does come on hard-up families at Christmas.
I mean, turn telly on, all you get is advertising, and pick the paper up and all you get is the next super video game, and when you've got, I mean, we've got two 12-year-olds, because it's very impressionable now. So they go to school and they get all the pressure from school, their friends come in with these big expensive presents, and I just can't afford it, and it, you know, you get fed up with saying, no, we're running out of excuses, really. The first excuse you say is, well, I don't think you really need that this year. And then you have to sort of broaden it to say that you can't afford it in the end. It comes out. But I mean, that's sort of 15 excuses later, and I think the kids get a bit fed up with it as well.
But in a recession, it's not only the less well-off who are wary of overspending.
Some children do like very expensive presents, which parents can't afford. So, yes, it can be a bit tiring.
The uncertainties that we've had in the financial markets this year leaves everybody wondering what's going to happen to the future. It would be unwise to overextend at Christmas and then suffer in the new year.
Very much more careful this year with presents and shopping.
And why is that?
Well, there's less money.
But not every child has ambitious hopes.
Like one of those WWF wrestling rings.
Well, they're only £20. What about you?
Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds.
Blue.
So they're quite small things. You're not telling Mummy that you want Father Christmas to bring big, huge things, are you?
No.
Isn't there a big thing you want?
No. A Maritime Titanium.
Oh, what?
A Maritime Titanium.
What's that?
Bike.
Is he nuts? That's a bike that apparently costs as much as several computer games. But if expensive wheels is your desire, then take a look at these.
The machine of a dream.
On sale on Monday, in time for Christmas at Sotheby's in Billingshurst. This is the dream Christmas present for any red-blooded male, a Ferrari Testarossa. Except in this case, you'd have to be less than 5 feet tall to drive this car. This is the ultimate kiddie's car. Between £3,000 and £5,000 should secure this toy. It's part of an auction of toy cars at Billingshurst. And imagine my pleasure when I found the exact model that I was once given for Christmas in 19-something or other. The memories flooded back. And comparing my homely, simple one-time present and the Ferrari, I know that if I'd been given the choice, I'd far rather have had the Ferrari. Sean Holden, Coast to Coast in Billingshurst.
He's lying, he really wanted a boglin, didn't he?
I love those boglins.
I like the boglins.
I wish we had one here, because that boglin, I thought, bore a tremendous resemblance to Carl Tyler, actually.
It's lucky he's not here yet, really, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is, yes. He's not in yet, Ewan, otherwise I wouldn't have said that. Anyway, we'll have a little break. Coming up in part 2 of tonight's Coast to Coast, Carl Tyler, the man himself, with a bit of sunshine after the showers, but we'll have to wait for them. Plus, a revealing look at the South's biggest tourist attraction. But how much do we really know about it?
And the Sussex inventor building on success at the second attempt.
Come on, Dad. You're playing Vicky, not Andre Agassi.
Don't be so sure.
Agassi.
Hi, call me Andre.
Nescafe, Andre?
You bet. Nescafe sure is coffee at its best. It's the best thing served to me all week. Who's up for doubles?
Yeah! The best days are Nescafe days. Halford's Christmas countdown has started. All Haynes manuals just $7.99. All socket sets and toolboxes 20% off. All car mats 20% off. 20% off selected cycle safety helmets and 20% off selected leading brand bikes in our massive pre-Christmas cycle sale at Halford's till Christmas.
Your legs could stay silky smooth for weeks when you switch to the new Braun Silk Appeal Duo. The secret is in Braun's uniquely adjustable multi-disc system, varying the tweezer action to remove even very fine hairs. Try the new Braun Silk Appeal Duo. You'll love the result.
Nestle clusters, whole wheat flakes and walnuts, pecans and almonds, all cleverly clustered together with a touch of honey. It's so nutty, chances are you won't be the only one to appreciate it. If you like nuts, you'll love Nestle clusters.
Safeway, Supermarket Wine Merchant of the Year. Taste this soft, fruity Corbière. Incredible for $1.99. Or our exclusive Hungarian country wine. For superb quality and value, trust Safeway.
Golden Wonder Crisps now taste even better, so you should look at them in a different way. Oh, Simpson, see me after this advertisement.
Golden Wonderland. One bite and you're there.
That's live. Recording every day. Anything you want to, from golf, the play, cartoon, the soap, a film, or your team. Scotch tape gives perfect results every time. On the screen, I said that's live.
If it's Scotch, it's guaranteed for life. For high-quality sheepskins, the latest in fashion leatherwear, and excellent value, the Yeovil Sheepskin Shop.
It's well worth a visit.
Whitby's, Chichester's leading photo-video store. Vivitar, the legend is in the lens. See the new 440 PZ compact zoom. Fujifilms bring your pictures to life. Ask for Whitby's prices. If you have an eye for the better buy the Yashica KX V1 camcorder. Whitby's, never too busy to help.
Yes, you're quite right. Welcome back. Well, if you're still looking for Christmas present ideas, here is another one. A unique study of the New Forest, which combines the beauty of the forest with the history of the ancient woodland. It's been put together by 2 local men. The pictures were taken by a Lyndhurst photographer, and the book is written by the great man himself, the one and only Jack Hargreaves. Shelley Hunt has this report.
The New Forest is something of a contradiction in terms. At more than 900 years old, it's certainly not new, and much of it bears little resemblance to a forest. Although it's one of Britain's oldest surviving ancient woodlands, few books, apart from dry scientific tomes, have been written about it. Now a Dorset publishing company has brought out a book of stunning pictures, which details every aspect of the forest's rich history and customs.
We knew that we wanted to put about 200 photographs in. Terry's got about 20,000, I would say. I remember going over one day to go and try and choose the deer photographs. We had 2,000 transparencies, and by about 11 o'clock in the morning, my eyes were completely boggled, and we had to go to the pub and take sustenance in order to recover and to go back to it again in the afternoon. There was masses of stuff to choose from. It really was a nightmare to try and whittle it all down.
The photos, taken through every season of the year, come from the huge collection of Lyndhurst photographer Terry Heathcote. He's been taking pictures in the forest since he was a teenager, getting up before it's light most days to capture the unspoilt look of the forest at dawn.
I like the different weather, particularly getting out in the mornings. You get the bits of mist, nice bit of backlighting. And it's quieter. The forest tends to get more busy as each year passes.
Do you have favourite spots for going where you know you're going to get lovely pictures?
Yes, I suppose so. There's two or three where you know you can expect to see the deer or the foxes, the badgers, or good bird areas, and I tend not to talk about them.
The publishers were determined to use local experts for their book, so they asked Jack Hargreaves to write the text. He lived in the forest for nearly 30 years. With moves already underway to make the forest a national park, he believes the book is vital to helping visitors understand its importance.
This is a purposeful book, because if we can coax them into reading it in this very Reader's Digest form, compared to the great books, a lot of people know a lot more about it, and the forest may have more chance to be listened to.
But if the saying, pictures speak louder than words, is true, with the help of this book, the forest couldn't fail to be heard. Shelley Hunt, Coast to Coast, The New Forest.
Lovely to see old Jack again, wasn't it? And The New Forest, a portrait in colour, is published by the Dovecot Press and costs £14.95.
A couple of years ago, an inventor from West Sussex thought he'd hit the jackpot. Peter Stone from Angmering made building blocks out of old newspapers. Alas, he later discovered that the idea had been patented by someone else before the war. But the story didn't end there, and Peter's bounced back. First, we bring you that original report from Rob Widows, and we ask, whatever happened to Peter Stone?
All the best ideas, as we know, are the simplest, and most of them make you wonder why you didn't think of it yourself. Littlehampton builder Peter Stone was looking at a Greenwatch item about waste paper when he was inspired with the idea of paper bricks.
From there, I went out into the kitchen, got some old newspaper, I'll never forget, it was the Daily Mirror. I tore it up, pulped it in the sink, and put it in an old ice cream carton. I put a bit of cement with it, and just put it out in the conservatory, let it go off. And then I got it out, and a couple of days later, I thought, well, I don't know, this could be a good idea.
These blocks are as strong and as weatherproof as the traditional building material. Peter Stone and his partner Brian Madams reckon that there is a real future for waste materials in the building industry. But the idea has not been without its problems in the early stages.
Brian went home knocked himself up some papier-mâché with cement and what have you. I think the first thing he made was a ball. And he put it in his wife's microwave to dry it quick. And it progressed from there into the blender, which is now defunct. My own wife ended up with pulp in the potatoes when she's been cooking Sunday lunch.
So where do Peter and Brian go from here? Well, there's already interest from one of the country's leading brick manufacturers, and a patent has been taken out on the idea. So perhaps it's true what they say, all the best ideas are the simplest. This building block is just a week's worth of newspapers, plus a bit of cold water, sand and cement. And it resists heat, and it resists the rain. Already some major building companies are interested in what Peter and Brian have produced.
The best people I've found so far have been very helpful are Ash Resources. They are part of the Rugby Cement Group. They are very good. We've had several meetings here, and they are now helping me with the technical data of it.
I suppose you could get a bit of colour into it by using the Financial Times, could you?
Well, possibly. I was thinking of using today's newspaper with the young ladies on, and possibly it'll show through. That'd be very nice.
Of course, there's a long way to go before they become millionaires. But it is a green idea that really works. So, while further tests are done on the strength and quality of the blocks, Peter Stone has a plan of his own. He's going to build a wall inside his own home to prove that old newspapers can support a roof over his own head.
Since his interview on Coast to Coast 2 years ago, the story of the enterprising Peter Stone from Angmering has developed into the good news and the bad news. First, the bad news.
After the interview, the patent office done a search for us on our patent, and it was found to be public knowledge since 1928. In other words, somebody had wrote it down, and anybody could make it if they wanted to. I can tell you this, that when I received the letter one morning, I read it, it brought me to tears, because you don't get many chances in this world to have a good idea.
But Peter was definitely not to be outdone. While watching Coast to Coast one night, he saw pictures of a waste plant. It was just the inspiration he needed.
I thought to myself, that's the answer, Peter. The rubbish out the dustbin. I'll make blocks out of there.
And so he bought some of the rubbish pellets, shredded them down back at home, and got to work on his spur-of-the-moment idea. His prescription for a brand new, environmentally friendly and economically viable brick was 25% pellets made from rubbish, and the rest, the tried and trusted sand and cement. The result, a brick that's as green and as magic as they come.
Blocks themselves, you know, they've got the U value, which is thermal for heating. It retains heat because of the fibrous material which is in it.
So you've done your bit for the environment, Peter?
Well, put it like this, I've tried, but the simple fact is that using the waste, you won't be burying so much, and also you'll be saving on digging aggregate from the sea shelf or inland bases.
Now, an international company has paid Peter a retainer so that they can research his idea further. Next Monday, they'll report back. Is Peter confident his system will net him a cool $1 million?
Quite easily, I have no doubt.
The stark probability is that Peter's creation could be sold in 48 countries and make him a multi-millionaire. Peter Clark, Coast to Coast, Angmering in Sussex.
Well, let's hope that company likes his idea on Monday.
It just shows you what you can do with a load of old rubbish, doesn't it?
Well, I'm not saying anything.
Mind you, I've been doing it for years. Now, building a nice little sports spot for us now, Gareth Evans, with tonight, Gareth, football, cricket and a spot of rugby as well.
That's right, Fred, yep. And we kick off with football. Southampton could climb into the top half of the Premier League for the first time this season if they can win at Everton tomorrow. Captain Glenn Cockrell is still suffering from a calf strain and is likely to be missing again. It was Cockrell who scored the winning goal at Goodison Park last season to help Saints pull away from the relegation zone. Ian Bramford's team are currently unbeaten in 6 games, whereas Everton are struggling just 5 places above the foot of the table. Barry Horn and Paul Rideout will both be up against their former team for the first time since leaving the Dell. Portsmouth defender Gavin Maguire is out for a month after having a hernia operation. He's replaced by Steve Agnew for the home match with Notts County. Bournemouth have signed the Watford striker Steve Butler on loan. He'll make his debut against Hull at Dean Court. John Crumpling keeps his place in the Brighton side for the visit of Plymouth. Brighton have lost only once in 10 games. And Reading's James Lambert will sign a new long-term contract on the pitch before the home game with Stockport. Lambert trained with the French club Monaco this week and has interested Liverpool as well. Now, in these days of hostile bowling, razor-sharp eyesight is essential for every cricketer. For Graham Cowdrey, the son of Sir Colin Cowdrey, the news that his sight was less than perfect came as a severe blow. But now he's become the first professional sportsman to undergo revolutionary surgery at a hospital in Hampshire, as Mike Field reports.
CN now to Graham Cowdrey.
While Graham Cowdrey was piling on the runs over the last 2 seasons for Kent, few people realised he was having problems seeing the ball clearly.
I went to see a specialist in Canterbury and he said you've had overuse of contact lenses and you've got to be very careful. So for the rest of the year I used contact lenses to bat in, but when it came to fielding I wore glasses, and as any cricketer of any standard will tell you, it's a nightmare when you wear glasses to field in.
Open wide.
Graham is gambling on a unique operation to improve his vision. If successful, he'll no longer need contact lenses or glasses. He's the first professional sportsman to receive the eye surgery.
Very difficult to see any difference between the two eyes.
My left eye has been done.
Okay. Can you sit back?
So I'm looking at you really perfectly now. If I actually took my glasses off, I'd see perfectly out of my left eye, and you'd be blurred with my right eye. A, H, D, F, and then I'm struggling.
So now Graham is being tested for the right eye, and he needs the same operation. Using the latest laser and computer techniques, the operation is being carried out at the Bupa Hospital at Havant in Hampshire.
The laser is going to reshape the very central 5 millimeters of the cornea, remove a minute amount of tissue, and flatten that central area.
Graham will have to wait another 3 months for the second operation, but he still has to undergo laser tests.
At this stage, we're just getting you lined up, and I want you to look straight up into the microscope.
It costs £1,300 per eye, and it's not yet available on the National Health.
I hope it's going to see the ball quicker, pick it up, and hit it to the boundary.
Cowdrey feels the operation will open a fresh chapter in his career, and it could make him a better cricketer.
I certainly felt it was hindering my career, and was always thinking, I wish I had better eyesight. I've got a vision now that once this operation is totally finished, I really feel it's going to make a big difference in my game.
And no more problems finding his contact lenses the next morning.
My great friend Steve Marsh, who I've roomed with for many years, he managed to drink a pair of my lenses once in Brighton. And the worst thing of it all, we had a big Benson Hedges game the following day. We'd come from Chelmsford, and we'd had a curry that night, and he'd woken up at 2 in the morning, and I'd left my lenses in a glass. Up he gets, you know, whatever time, 3 in the morning, drinks. I wake up at 5:30 for some reason, and I woke him up. I said, "What have you done with the glass?" And he said, I've had a drink. And I said, "My contact lenses are in there."
And presumably shots like this won't be in Graham's repertoire in 1993. Mike Field, Coast to Coast.
Meanwhile, Mark Nicholas has been reappointed as the Hampshire cricket captain for next season, his 9th year in charge. Nicholas, who's 35, has been with Hampshire since 1978, but there was speculation that he might leave to pursue a career as a cricket correspondent for a Sunday newspaper. Meanwhile, Hampshire have announced profits of £42,000 for the past year, the bulk of it from winning the Benson and Hedges Trophy. Finally, up to 5,000 rugby fans are expected at Basingstoke tomorrow for Hampshire's vital county championship game with Cornwall. Hampshire must win to have any chance of qualifying for the semi-final, but it won't be easy. Cornwall have reached the final at Twickenham for the past 2 years. Best of luck though to Hampshire. That's all the sport. Over to Fred.
Thank you very much indeed, Gareth. Well, of course, it is Christmas next week, and we hope to get in the Christmas spirit, do we not? We hope to have our own tree in the studio next week if we can find someone to put it in. In the meantime, we've been sent this splendid little creation by Andrea Nichols, who's aged only 9, from Bursledon, who says, "Dear Fred, here is the Christmas tree that I've made for you to put on the Coast to Coast desk to make it look Christmassy." It certainly does, Andrea. We're very grateful. Thank you very much indeed, and a happy Christmas to you.
Yes, it's lovely. And talking of Christmas, I asked you earlier if you'd sent your letters off to Father Christmas in Lapland.
Yes.
Well, a few of you rung up and said, he doesn't live in Lapland, he lives in the North Pole. Well, we've been having a little argument here in the Coast to Coast office and in the studio. Where does Father Christmas live? So we'll have to ask the expert. Carl Tyler, where does Father Christmas live?
The North Pole.
No, he
doesn't. He lives in Lapland.
Now, look, I've always sent my letters to the North Pole, and they've never come back saying not known at this address.
But did you get any
live at the North Pole.
And what are you hoping for this year, a boglin?
Well, steady now, steady. Now, tell me, we've had rain, gales, frost this week.
Yes.
What are we missing?
A bit of sunshine.
How about a bit of snow?
No, you're joking.
Probably not down here, but there may be some tomorrow. Go nicely with the tree.
Lovely.
Okay.
Off you go.
Well, certainly many places have had an inch of rain today. There's more to come this evening, and even more as we go through tomorrow. If we start with a satellite picture, there's our problem. It's a band of cloud right the way down the country. Now, there are bulges on that cloud. There's one just pushing up towards the south coast at the moment. That's going to bring even more rain as we go into the evening. Then the rain's starting to die out, but another rather large bulge further south. That's going to bring us the problems for tomorrow. On the overall weather pattern, that rain, cloud, that's the cold front with little ripples running along, but a more major development now, just off the coast of Spain, moving up towards us. By noon tomorrow, that's going to be well into Biscay, starting to push the fronts back in towards us, so it's rain at times as we go through tomorrow. And on the northern edge of that band of rain could well be some wet snow. Let's start with tonight. At the moment, it's just about dry inland, although spots of rain in Sussex and Surrey, but that band of rain is onto the coast now. That'll drift through as we go through the evening. There may be 1 or 2 heavier bursts, and then by midnight, starting to die out, limiting the rain to just Sussex, Surrey, along the coast itself, just generally light rain. Now, the coldest temperatures in the drier spots, we're looking for 2, that's 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Under the rain, you may well find the temperatures 3 or 4 degrees higher. Tomorrow morning, cloudy right through, outbreaks of rain on the coast, and late in the morning, they're going to start to drift inland yet again. Into the afternoon, rain just about anywhere. As we go through the area, just outbreaks of rain. And on the northern edge of that, I'm looking for Salisbury Plain, perhaps some Marlborough Downs, some sleet, or even snow as we go into the evening. Now, the wind's quite strong from the northeast, right the way through the day, up to a force 6 in the Channel. And your best temperatures tomorrow are much cooler, 6, that's 43 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, looking ahead for the next 2 or 3 days, we'll start rather cloudy on sunny, but it'll brighten up with the sunshine coming out in the afternoon, but a rather cool day. Monday and Tuesday could well be freezing fog to start the day, and then we're looking for sunshine as we go into the afternoon. The wind's quite light, but look at those temperatures, only 3, only just above freezing. Our picture tonight, that's by young Charlie McElmurray, and the summary tonight, rain at times, and then tomorrow, even more rain at times.
Thank you very much, Carl. Before we leave you, a look at the main headlines in the south tonight. 2 teenagers are dead and a third is fighting for his life after a crash involving a stolen car in Reading.
A small travel agent in Dorset is at the centre of a new row over the free flights promotion by the Hoover company.
And scientists at Sussex University believe they've discovered a better way of testing the hearing of newborn babies.
And there'll be more, of course, in the TVS late news tonight after the news at 10. We are back, of course, with Coast to Coast on Monday at 6 o'clock. In the meantime, we hope you have a very happy and peaceful weekend. We're going to leave you, though, tonight with more of the folk who've really got into the spirit of Christmas by decorating their houses with lights and Christmas decorations. There are the Joneses of Parkstone, the Marsdens of Creekmore, the Joneses of Waterlock, the Strudwicks of Chichester, the Taplins of Gosport, and all of the residents of St John's Hill, a street in Reading. To them and to you, from all of us on Coast to Coast, a very good night.
Good night.
You're watching TVS. Next tonight, Shaw Taylor introduces the final Police 5.
Look, there it is, sir, to starboard.
A bottle of Tesco Van Pay for $1.99.
We know you're under, boy! Come and get me!
Why, he could be anywhere, Sheriff. Flush him out. Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes encrusted with honey, nuts, and brown sugar. I'm coming down.
I'm coming down, too!
Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. The trouble is they taste too good.
Bonjour, Jeeves. Un verre frais de petite ferme original, s'il vous plaît.
Very good, sir.
I'll be parleying like a native before you know it.
Your chilled worm from an original small farm.
Chilled Croft Original. One instinctively knows when something is right.
Hello, it's the police.
Hello, officer. Can I help?
I'm looking for the missing treasure. What's this?
That's my treasure. My new fairy Excel.
Why is it a treasure?
It's even milder than my old fairy.
What's milder?
Well, not just soft. It's softer. That's what milder means.
Your hands feel very milder.
Do they?
And there's a missing treasure.
You call me red-handed, officer.
But you haven't got red hands, Mummy.
Now hands that do dishes can feel soft as your face with mild green, very liquid.
Some people find that traditional indigestion tablets leave a chalky, gritty taste in their mouth. New Remigel are different. You'll find they're soft, chewy and minty. Remigel dissolves smoothly, work quickly and effectively to help soothe away indigestion. New Remigel. They're chewy, not chalky.
There are times in your life when you need to be instantly in touch.
Hi, Robert, it's me. I'm sorry, love, I've missed the bus.
Cellnet's new Lifetime service makes it more affordable for light users to have a mobile phone.
Oh, and be as quick as you can, would you? Hi. Thanks for coming out, love.
You're right.
Of course. His claws need cutting.
With Cellnet, you're always in safe hands. Ring 0800 21 4000.
When it comes to security, may we introduce man's best friend? The Sony phone.
Now on TVS, Shaw Taylor asks for your help to solve another crime.
Good evening. Christmas in Crawley, Sussex. A festive spirit here in Queen's Square. But I would like to take you back 1 week to Friday, a week ago, 6 o'clock in the evening, and the scene of an armed robbery.
The body shop was closing for the night. Outside, 2 men were waiting their opportunity. They'd already tapped on the doors once. You may have seen them. They tried a second time.
Police, is the manager about?
Yes, come in. I turned one light on and then we walked up to the back of the shop and the young man didn't say anything at all. The older man said to me...
I just want you to have a look at the photographs of these women.
What am I supposed to be looking for? I've got a bit of a blank at this point. I don't know how whether I'd unlocked the cupboard door where I ended up or whether they unlocked it and pushed me in. I've got a complete blank about that. But the next thing I knew, the older man shut the file and turned and looked at me and said, "Right, love," and pushed me backwards into the cupboard, at which point the younger one produced a gun and held it up to my my neck. And the older man said to me, "I've been nicked for this sort of thing before, and I don't plan to get caught this time." And he said, "Right, I want the shop door keys and I want the safe key."
And you don't argue with a gun at your neck. They stuffed cash and checks into a body shop bag and left. They said they would phone the police and tell them the girl was locked in the cupboard. They didn't. But let me take you back to what could be the all-important clue.
The older man said to me, I've been nicked for this sort of thing before, and I don't plan to get caught this time.
Does that connect up in your mind with the fella on the left? A man probably in his late 40s, early 50s. Not a very tall man, short black hair, and wearing a blue suit, white shirt and a tie. The other one with him was younger, taller, in his mid-20s, I would say. Black casual bomber-type jacket and blue jeans. And both had East London accents. A bit outside our area, but you never know, maybe a police officer or a prison officer will take a look at those and say, oh yes, I think I know who that is. Something else. At the bottom of the square in the road leading to the car park was an old light-coloured Cortina. The victim's sister noticed the driver peering anxiously towards the square. So much so she looked back and the man was still staring, waiting for the two robbers or for his wife to get on with the shopping. You may have the answer. Names, witnesses. If you can help at all, ring 0293 524242, the CID at Crawley, in confidence as always. And so the end is near. That'd be a good line in a song, you know. No more police fives after this, so it's down to me to say thank you to all the help you've given the police over the years, and say thank you to the police themselves, particularly the press office at Sussex, who have been the editors, as it were, of the programme.
Yes, we're going to miss the programme, Shaw. It was our one opportunity to get help in solving what, on the face of it, seem small crimes, but very often lead to big ones.
For instance?
Well, a stolen tractor. After that programme, a caller led us to £400,000 worth of stolen farm machinery.
In fact, I worked it out. You've helped, during this year alone, on over 400 crimes. And on a quarter of those, you've been able to come up with names for the criminals.
Security cameras, you're absolutely right. In over 80% of those cases, we've either made an arrest or been able to put names onto the wanted list, and they'll come eventually.
All right, let's go out on a high and cram in as many security videos as we can and see if you can name the people on them. Watch that lad in a store in Horsham. He's picked up a camera and he places it on a lower shelf. Or does he? Looks to me as though he's dropped it into the old chap's carrier bag. If you'd ring Horsham Police on 0403 273733 and tell them who they are, they'll find out for sure. This gentleman has presented a stolen Barclay card in a Bournemouth bank. Paul CID would like to know who he is. Please ring them on 0202 552099. This lad has enough knowledge of a customer's account in a Guildford bank to persuade them to hand over £300. Well, perhaps you would hand over his name to Guildford detectives on 0483 31111. I'm not going to say goodbye because we'll be meeting again in other guises, but I hope you will keep on keeping them peeled. Bye-bye.
Was shot last night.
I don't want you hurt, and I don't want me hurt.
A Touch of Frost, Sunday on TVS.
Back to tonight, and Lloyd Grossman runs his finger through the dust of two more celebrity homes. Next.